Picture this for a moment. Two people start the year with the same ambition. One announces every plan, debates every move, and reacts to every opinion. The other quietly goes to work, adjusts in silence, and lets results do the talking. 12 months later, only one of them has truly changed. That difference is not talent, luck, or education. It is focus and silence. Good evening, my friend. This is a quiet conversation about a powerful idea, one that has shaped success across generations, yet is often overlooked in an age of constant noise. The idea is simple, timeless, and remarkably effective. Focus on yourself and stay silent as you do it. As we move into New Year, the world will continue to grow louder. Opinions will multiply. Advice will arrive uninvited. Everyone will have something to say about what you should do, how you should live, and who you should become. Yet history teaches us a calm and steady truth. The individual who makes the greatest progress is the one who listens less to the crowd and more to their own disciplined intention. Silence, you see, is not the absence of action. It is the absence of distraction. When you remain silent about your plans, you protect them. You give them room to grow without interference, comparison, or doubt. Nature itself works this way. The seed does not announce its arrival. It remains buried, unseen, and quiet until the day it breaks through the surface stronger than anything that tried to disturb it. Focusing on yourself does not mean ignoring the world. It means choosing your thoughts carefully. It means deciding with calm authority what deserves your time and what does not. Most people spend their days reacting. A few spend their days creating. Creation requires focus, and focus flourishes in silence. There is a practical wisdom here. Begin by selecting one meaningful goal, just one. Not 10, not 5. One direction that truly matters to you. Write it down. Decide what a better version of you looks like in daily behavior, not distant dreams. Then ask a quiet question each morning. What is the next small step I can take today? Take that step without announcement. Improve a skill without broadcasting it. Build discipline without demanding recognition. Read when others scroll. Practice when others discuss. Rest when others rush. In doing so, you are shaping your character, and character is the foundation upon which every lasting success is built. Let me give you a thought worth remembering, a sentence you can carry with you throughout 2026. When you focus on yourself in silence, life answers you with results. This is not theory. It is a law of achievement. The mind grows stronger when it is directed, not divided. Energy multiplies when it is concentrated, not scattered. And confidence becomes unshakable when it is earned privately rather than borrowed publicly. You will notice something remarkable when you live this way. The urge to explain fades. The need for validation disappears, and in its place comes a quiet certainty, a calm knowledge that you are moving forward regardless of who is watching. Your attention is the most valuable asset you will ever possess, yet it is the one most people give away without thought, without purpose, and without return. Money can be lost and earned again. Time moves in one direction only. But attention is the steering wheel of your life. Wherever you place it consistently, your future quietly follows. This is not philosophy for idle conversation. It is a working law that governs success, failure, peace, and frustration alike. Most people believe their lives are shaped by circumstances. In truth, their lives are shaped by what they continually think about, worry about, react to, and pursue. Attention is the gatekeeper of thought. What you allow through that gate determines the quality of your inner world, and your inner world eventually expresses itself in visible results. Guarding your attention, then, is not selfish, it is intelligent self-leadership. Consider how easily attention is stolen. A headline, an opinion, an argument that does not advance your life even 1 inch. Hours disappear, energy is drained, and at the end of the day there is little to show for it except mental fatigue. This happens not because people lack ability, but because they have never been taught the value of their focus. They spend it the way a child spends coins, unaware that it could have been invested. The disciplined individual learns to pause before reacting. They ask a quiet but powerful question, does this deserve my attention? If the answer is no, they let it pass. If the answer is yes, they give it their full presence. There is no half focus, no scattered effort. When attention is concentrated, even ordinary actions begin to produce extraordinary results. Guarding your attention also means choosing your inputs, what you read, what you listen to, and who you allow influence over your thinking all leave an imprint. The mind, like soil, does not argue with the seed. It simply grows what is planted. Feed it confusion and noise, and it will return anxiety. Feed it purpose and clarity, and it will return direction. This is why progress often appears slow to those who announce everything and focus on everything at once. Their attention is divided, and divided attention produces divided results. The quiet worker, however, who protects their mental energy and directs it toward a single aim, begins to build momentum almost unnoticed. Then one day, others call it sudden success, never realizing it was attention, patiently invested, paying compound interest. To guard your attention is to respect yourself. It is to say, my life is important enough to be lived deliberately. When you practice this daily, when you decide where your focus goes instead of allowing the world to decide for you, you step out of reaction and into command. And that, my friend, is the moment life begins to move in your chosen direction. Silence has long been misunderstood. Many mistake it for hesitation, for uncertainty, even for fear. Yet, in the economy of achievement, silence is one of the strongest forms of discipline a person can develop. It is not the silence of inaction, but the silence of controlled power. The individual who learns to remain quiet while working, learning, and growing possesses an inner strength that cannot be easily shaken. Most people feel compelled to speak, to explain themselves, to announce intentions, to defend decisions that require no defense. This impulse drains energy. Every explanation invites opinion, and every opinion carries the risk of doubt. Silence, on the other hand, seals energy within. It allows thought to mature without interference. When you remain silent, you give your mind room to organize, refine, and strengthen its direction. Consider how nature operates. The most significant processes occur without sound. Mountains rise slowly, seasons change quietly, and growth itself is nearly silent. Noise accompanies collapse, not construction. In the same way, the person who is building a new level of life does not need to advertise the work. The work itself is enough. Silence sharpens perception. When you are not speaking unnecessarily, you are observing. You notice patterns others miss. You hear what is being said beneath the words. You sense when to act and when to wait. This awareness becomes a strategic advantage. While others are busy reacting, the silent individual is positioning. There is also dignity in restraint. A person who speaks only when necessary is naturally taken more seriously. Their words carry weight because they are not scattered. Silence becomes a signal of confidence, not because one has nothing to say, but because one knows the right moment to say it. This self-command separates the deliberate from the impulsive. Practically speaking, silence protects your plans. Goals spoken too early are exposed to interruption, sometimes by others, often by your own shifting emotions. When plans remain unspoken, they stay flexible. You can adjust, refine, and correct course without the burden of explaining why. Progress becomes smoother because it is private. Silence also builds emotional strength. When you no longer feel the need to respond to every provocation, you regain control over your inner state. Calm replaces agitation. Thought replaces impulse. In that calm, better decisions are made, and better decisions, repeated over time, create a better life. This discipline does not require withdrawal from the world. It requires selectivity. Speak with purpose. Act with intention. Let silence do its quiet work in the background, strengthening resolve and sharpening focus. Those who master silence discover a remarkable truth. Power grows when it is conserved, and the person who moves quietly, steadily, and with direction off arrives far ahead of those who made the most noise along the way. There is a subtle turning point in every individual's development when progress begins to accelerate. And it often arrives the moment they stop explaining themselves. Explanation feels productive, but more often than not, it is a form of delay. It consumes energy that could have been applied directly to growth. The person who is constantly clarifying intentions, justifying choices, or seeking understanding from others is not standing still, but they are moving far more slowly than they realize. Growth is an inward process before it ever becomes outward evidence. When you explain yourself too much, you shift your attention away from the work and toward the reaction. You begin to measure your progress by how well others understand it, rather than by how faithfully you are improving. The mind, once redirected outward, loses some of its creative force. It begins to perform instead of produce. The disciplined individual learns a different approach. They understand that explanation is optional, but progress is essential. Instead of talking about what they are becoming, they quietly become it. This creates a powerful internal alignment. Thought, action, and purpose move in the same direction without interruption. Momentum builds because nothing is leaking away through unnecessary words. Explanations often arise from a desire to be understood. Yet history shows us that understanding usually comes after results, not before them. The world rarely believes what it is told, but it always recognizes what it sees. When growth is visible, explanation becomes unnecessary. The work introduces itself. There is also a hidden confidence that forms when explanation decreases. You stop seeking permission. You stop waiting for agreement. You act from internal clarity rather than external approval. This independence strengthens decision-making. Choices are made faster, corrections are made sooner, and lessons are absorbed more deeply because the mind is not distracted by how those choices will be received. In practical terms, this means learning to let silence do its work. When asked about your plans, you offer simplicity, not detail. When questioned about your direction, you remain calm, not defensive. You allow time and consistency to answer on your behalf. This restraint keeps your energy intact and your focus sharp. Growth thrives in this environment. Skills improve because practice is uninterrupted. Habits form because attention is undivided. Confidence strengthens because it is earned through repetition, not reinforced through reassurance. What once required motivation now runs on momentum. The individual who reduces explanation also develops resilience. They are less affected by doubt, less vulnerable to discouragement, and less dependent on encouragement. Their satisfaction comes from progress itself, not from acknowledgement. This creates emotional stability, and emotional stability is the quiet foundation of long-term success. When explanation decreases, growth accelerates not by accident, but by design. Energy once spent on words is redirected into action. Thought once scattered becomes concentrated, and life, responding to clarity and consistency, begins to move more quickly in the chosen direction. In time, people will ask how it happened so fast, and you will know the answer. You stopped explaining and you started becoming. Direction is the quiet decision that gives meaning to effort. Distraction is the constant temptation to abandon that decision. Most lives are not derailed by a single mistake, but by 1,000 small diversions that feel harmless in the moment. The difference between those who move steadily forward and those who remain busy yet unfulfilled lies in one simple practice: choosing direction again and again, regardless of noise. Direction is not urgency. It is not speed. It is clarity. When you know where you are going, you can move calmly, even slowly, and still arrive. Without direction, even great effort becomes wasted motion. A person may work hard all day and yet feel strangely empty at night, not from lack of activity, but from lack of alignment. Distraction thrives on novelty. It promises importance without progress. A new idea, a new comparison, a new crisis that demands immediate attention. Yet, most of these interruptions have nothing to do with your chosen path. They borrow your time, dilute your energy, and leave you exactly where you started. Direction, on the other hand, asks a quieter question: does this move me forward? If it does not, it is set aside, no matter how urgent it appears. To focus on direction requires a deliberate mindset. You begin with a clear aim, not a vague wish. You decide what matters most in this season of your life. Then you filter choices through that decision. This does not make life smaller, it makes it simpler. When direction is clear, decisions become easier. Confusion fades because priorities are no longer competing. The disciplined individual understands that distraction often arrives, disguised as opportunity. Not every open door leads where you want to go. Saying yes to everything is the fastest way to lose your way entirely. Progress demands the courage to say no quietly, firmly, and without explanation. Direction also stabilizes emotion. When you are clear on your path, setbacks feel temporary rather than personal. You adjust without panic. You continue without drama. Distraction feeds emotion. Direction feeds purpose. One scatters attention, the other gathers it. In daily practice, this means returning to your direction each morning. Not with pressure, but with resolve. You ask yourself what one or two actions matter most today. You complete them before allowing lesser matters to intrude. Over time, this habit compounds. Small, aligned actions performed consistently create results that appear extraordinary to those who were distracted along the way. Direction does not eliminate challenge, but it gives challenge meaning. Every effort becomes a step, not a struggle. Every obstacle becomes information, not interruption. The path grows clear because you are walking it with intention. When you choose direction over distraction, life begins to feel quieter, not because there is less happening, but because less of it controls you. And in that quiet, steady movement. You discover a powerful truth. Success is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters on purpose again and again. There is a great freedom that arrives the day you realize your progress does not require an audience. Most people, without knowing it, place their growth on display, waiting for signs of approval before they feel justified in continuing. Yet personal advancement has never depended on applause. It depends on private discipline, clear intention, and the quiet satisfaction of moving forward. Approval is a fragile foundation. It shifts with mood, trend, and opinion. When progress is tied to it, motivation rises and falls unpredictably. One encouraging word can lift you. One careless remark can slow you down. The individual who understands this learns to separate self-worth from public response. They begin to measure progress internally by effort given, skill improved, and character strengthened. History is filled with examples of men and women who labored in obscurity long before recognition ever appeared. They were not driven by praise, but by purpose. Their work was not shaped by what others thought of it, but by what it demanded of them. This inward commitment gave their progress a stability that no criticism could erase. Personal progress is an agreement you make with yourself. It is fulfilled in the daily choices no one else sees. The hours spent learning, the habit practiced despite fatigue, the restraint exercised when no reward is immediate. These moments rarely earn admiration, yet they are the moments that build capability. And capability, once developed, speaks for itself. Seeking approval often leads to comparison, and comparison quietly undermines growth. You begin to measure your pace against others, instead of against your own potential. Satisfaction fades not because you are failing, but because someone else appears to be ahead. When approval is removed from the equation, comparison loses its power. Your journey becomes personal again, as it was meant to be. There is also courage in self-directed progress. When you no longer wait for agreement, you act sooner. You correct mistakes faster. You trust your judgment while remaining open to learning. This balanced confidence without arrogance forms naturally when motivation comes from within rather than from outside validation. Practically, this means learning to enjoy improvement for its own sake. You notice the quiet signs of growth, clearer thinking, steadier habits, better decisions. These are not easily posted or praised, yet they are the real markers of advancement. Over time, they accumulate into visible change. When progress is private, it becomes resilient. It continues during doubt, during silence, during seasons when no one is watching. And when results eventually appear, they are solid. They are not borrowed confidence or temporary enthusiasm. They are earned. The individual who releases the need for approval gains something far more valuable: self-trust. And with self-trust comes consistency, calm, and a sense of direction that does not depend on permission. Personal progress does not require applause. It requires commitment. When you honor that truth, you discover that the most meaningful growth often happens quietly, and it lasts. There is a common illusion that success is created in moments of great effort, sudden bursts of motivation, or dramatic change. In reality, lasting achievement is almost always the result of something far less exciting and far more reliable: consistency. Intensity may impress, but it is consistency that transforms. When no one is watching, when enthusiasm fades, and when progress feels slow, it is steady action that quietly builds the future. Intensity depends on emotion. It rises with excitement and disappears with fatigue. Consistency depends on decision. Once a decision is made, action follows regardless of mood. This is why the consistent individual eventually surpasses the intense one. They do not wait to feel inspired. They act because it is time to act. When no one is watching, true character is revealed. This is the space where habits are either formed or forgotten. A person who shows up only when recognition is possible builds a fragile foundation. A person who shows up daily without applause builds strength. Each small action reinforces identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, and that self-image becomes a powerful force. Consistency simplifies life. You no longer negotiate with yourself each day. The decision has already been made. The action is routine. Energy once spent on debate is redirected into execution. This removes friction and allows progress to continue even on difficult days. Consider how skills are developed, not through occasional effort, but through repeated practice. The same is true of confidence, discipline, and clarity. They are not achieved, they are accumulated. A little today, a little tomorrow, and suddenly the difference is undeniable. There is also patience embedded in consistency. You understand that results are not always immediate. You trust the process because you have committed to it. This trust creates calm. You are no longer rushed by comparison or discouraged by temporary lack of feedback. You know that what is repeated becomes reality. Consistency without observation builds internal standards. You hold yourself accountable, not because someone else is watching, but because you respect your own commitment. This self-respect strengthens resolve. It becomes easier to continue, because stopping would mean breaking an agreement with yourself. Over time, consistent action compounds. What once felt small begins to produce noticeable change. Others may call it luck or timing, but you recognize it for what it is. The natural result of sustained effort. Intensity flares and fades. Consistency endures. The individual who understands this stops chasing motivation and starts building structure. They design routines that support their goals. They protect time for what matters. They return to the work day after day, quietly, steadily. And when the results finally appear, they do so with strength and stability. Because what is built consistently, especially when no one is watching, is built to last. Energy is neither created nor destroyed in the life of a person. It is directed. The quality of that direction determines the quality of results. Noise, constant commentary, reaction, and mental clutter does not merely distract. It disperses energy. Silence, by contrast, gathers it. When energy is concentrated, even ordinary effort begins to carry uncommon force. Most people live in a state of mental noise. Thoughts overlap, worries compete, and attention is pulled in several directions at once. This condition feels active, but it is inefficient. Like light scattered through fog, energy loses its ability to penetrate. Much movement occurs, yet little progress is made. Silence is not the absence of thought. It is the absence of unnecessary thought. When you remove needless input, the mind naturally organizes itself. Priorities become clearer. Decisions require less effort. Action becomes more precise. Energy, once fragmented, begins to flow toward a single aim. Consider the difference between shouting in a crowded room and speaking calmly in a quiet one. In silence, even a soft voice carries. The same principle applies to effort. When your mental environment is quiet, your actions have weight. They are deliberate rather than reactive. Noise encourages comparison. It invites reaction. It amplifies emotion. Each of these drains energy. Silence reduces emotional volatility. You are less provoked, less hurried, less pulled into matters that do not serve your direction. This emotional steadiness preserves strength. Practically, cultivating silence means limiting what competes for your attention. Not every message requires response. Not every opinion deserves consideration. By choosing carefully, you protect mental resources. This protection is not withdrawal, it is focus. In silence, you become more aware of your own thinking. You notice patterns, assumptions, and habits that were previously hidden beneath distraction. This awareness is powerful. It allows correction without conflict, growth without drama. Energy concentrated through silence also accelerates learning. When the mind is quiet, it absorbs more. Reflection becomes possible. Lessons are integrated rather than forgotten. This depth of understanding creates competence, and competence reduces effort. You do more with less strain. There is also a quiet confidence that emerges from this state. You are no longer compelled to fill space with words or prove yourself through reaction. Your presence becomes calm. Others sense it, even if they cannot explain it. This calm is not passive, it is contained strength. When energy is no longer scattered, progress becomes steady. You move forward with fewer starts and stops. Each action builds on the last. Momentum forms naturally without force. Silence concentrates energy because it removes interference. And when interference is removed, potential becomes power. The individual who understands this does not seek more energy. They seek better direction. In that quiet concentration, life begins to respond, not with noise, but with results. There is a fundamental truth about human effort that few people grasp. Work on causes rather than chasing applause is the pathway to lasting success. Most individuals measure their activity by the attention it draws. They believe that if others see it, it must matter. Yet history teaches us a different lesson. The truly effective person works quietly on the causes, the principles, the habits, the underlying actions that inevitably produce results, whether anyone notices or not. Causes are invisible. They do not beg for recognition. They do not appear in headlines. They live in repetition, in attention to detail, in the steady application of knowledge. The average person is drawn to effects the visible, immediate outcomes, because they are tangible and easily measured. But effects are fleeting. They depend on external factors. Causes, once mastered, create effects that are consistent, predictable, and lasting. Consider the craftsman who hones his skill in private. He does not seek an audience for every cut, every measurement, every adjustment. He trusts that mastery will speak for itself when the work is complete. The applause comes, yes, but only after the cause has been addressed thoroughly and with care. This principle applies to every area of life. Discipline, knowledge, honesty, persistence, these are causes. Recognition, reward, approval, these are effects. Working on causes also protects against distraction. When your focus is on results alone, your mind is vulnerable to comparison, envy, and impatience. You begin to chase applause instead of excellence. But when your focus is on causes, your energy is anchored. You know that the work itself is meaningful and that the outcome, though unseen for a time, will eventually emerge. There is patience in this understanding. And patience is a force multiplier. Moreover, attention to causes fosters independence. You no longer rely on external validation to feel accomplished. You measure progress by standards you set for yourself, by the refinement of your actions, and by the quiet satisfaction of doing the right thing consistently. This is self-reinforcement at its most powerful, a feedback loop that builds character, skill, and confidence simultaneously. Every great achievement in history is built on the patient cultivation of causes. The scientist studies tirelessly before a discovery is recognized. The entrepreneur invests years in learning, planning, and experimenting before profits appear. The artist practices their craft long before the audience applauds. In each case, the effect is merely the visible manifestation of diligent attention to cause. In practical terms, this means identifying the fundamental actions that will produce the results you desire and committing to them every day. Master the habits that strengthen your mind. Develop skills that improve your capacity. Make decisions guided by principle, not by popularity. Ignore the temporary applause and let your work speak in its own time. The individual who embraces this understanding gains a rare power, the ability to act with calm, steady confidence. Their efforts are not scattered by the noise of immediate recognition or discouraged by delays in reward. They build quietly, methodically, and effectively, and in doing so, they achieve not only results, but the inner satisfaction of knowing they are working on what truly matters. There's a subtle distinction between being busy and being productive, and it is one that separates those who achieve from those who merely exist. Most people spend their days reacting to circumstance, attending meetings, answering messages, and responding to every demand placed upon them. They are active, yes, but their activity is scattered. The person who achieves consistently understands that progress is built, not on activity alone, but on focus applied to what truly matters. When you focus on causes rather than distractions, your actions gain clarity. You are no longer pulled in 10 different directions at once. Each decision, each effort, each step becomes deliberate. You begin to understand that time is finite, attention is precious, and energy is not endless. This awareness creates a discipline that feels almost automatic because it is grounded in understanding rather than imposed by force. Distractions are everywhere. They arrive disguised as opportunity, urgency, or obligation. They demand attention, yet deliver little in the way of growth. The person who is focused filters everything through a simple question: does this action move me toward my defined goal, or does it merely occupy my time? If it does not advance the goal, it is set aside. This selectivity is not denial, it is wisdom. Focus also builds depth. The individual who applies themselves to a few important actions gains knowledge, skill, and experience far beyond the person who spreads their effort thinly. Depth produces mastery. Mastery produces confidence. Confidence produces results. Each step compounds on the last, quietly, steadily, without fanfare. Silence enhances this process. When you do not feel compelled to explain your every move or justify your every decision, your energy remains concentrated. Words dissipate energy. Action preserves it. The person who acts quietly develops momentum that is invisible until it manifests as success. Others may not notice the effort, but they recognize the results. Consistency is the engine of focus. Small, deliberate actions performed daily produce changes that appear dramatic over time. It is not brilliance, nor luck, nor talent that creates lasting achievement. It is the patient application of attention to the right causes. The world may celebrate sudden victories, but those victories are almost always the visible outcome of invisible, sustained effort. Focus also protects emotional energy. When attention is concentrated on meaningful work, there is less space for doubt, envy, or impatience. You are no longer at the mercy of others' opinions, nor distracted by noise that does not serve your purpose. The mind becomes calm, deliberate, and receptive to insight. In practice, focusing means designing your day, selecting priorities, and eliminating distractions. It means committing to habits that reinforce your growth and avoiding actions that do not. It means patience, because progress rarely appears immediately, yet it is certain when effort is applied consistently. The individual who masters focus and silence learns a profound truth. The world is noisy, unpredictable, and often impatient. But life responds to concentrated effort applied with purpose. Results are not rushed, not forced, and rarely announced in advance. They emerge quietly, steadily, and unmistakably, rewarding those who have the wisdom to focus on what truly matters. There is a truth about clarity that is often overlooked in the rush of modern life. Before you can succeed in the outer world, you must first achieve clarity within. The individual who acts without direction scatters their effort and energy, producing results that are unpredictable and often unsatisfying. The person who cultivates inner clarity, on the other hand, moves through life with purpose, certainty, and calm determination. It is the quiet power behind every meaningful achievement. Clarity begins with understanding what you truly value. Most people drift, believing that success means following someone else's definition, wealth, recognition, or approval. Yet these external measures rarely align with inner purpose. To achieve clarity, you must look inward, not outward. You must ask yourself, what matters most to me? What kind of life am I willing to work for every day? The answers guide thought, shape action, and protect energy from unnecessary diversion. Once values are clear, priorities naturally follow. Not all work is created equal, and not all effort yields meaningful results. The person with clarity understands where to invest attention and where to ignore distraction. They do not react to every demand, every trend, or every opinion. They act deliberately, choosing the tasks, habits, and relationships that support their highest goals. In doing so, they conserve energy and accelerate progress. Clarity also informs decision-making. When the mind is focused on principle rather than convenience, every choice becomes simpler. Doubt fades because direction is established. Hesitation diminishes because purpose is present. The person who knows what they want and why they want it can evaluate opportunities, setbacks, and challenges with calm judgment rather than frantic reaction. This is the hallmark of emotional and mental strength. Equally important, clarity fosters resilience. Life is unpredictable. Obstacles will appear. Plans will falter. The individual who has cultivated inner clarity remains steady because their course is guided by internal compass rather than external applause. They adjust, they learn, and they continue, confident that temporary setbacks cannot derail long-term progress. Clarity is not a one-time achievement. It is maintained through daily reflection, focused planning, and quiet self-assessment. Each morning, the clear-minded individual asks, what is the most important thing I can do today to move closer to my goal? Eat. Evening, they review progress, note lessons, and prepare for the next step. These practices compound over time, transforming small daily actions into profound long-term results. When clarity is combined with focus, silence, and consistent effort, it becomes a powerful engine for growth. Energy is not wasted. Effort is applied intelligently. The mind is calm, decisive, and aligned with purpose, and results, when they appear, are not accidental. They are the inevitable outcome of intentional action guided by clear thought. Ultimately, clarity is the foundation upon which all achievement is built. Without it, activity can be mistaken for progress and effort can be wasted. With it, life moves with direction, confidence, and quiet power. The individual who cultivates clarity knows where they are going, understands why they are going, and walks steadily along the path, letting their results speak louder than any words ever could. And so, as we draw this reflection to a close, let us pause and consider the power of focus, silence, and self-directed growth. Life in 2026, like every year, will offer distraction, noise, and countless voices competing for your attention. Yet the individual who chooses to focus on themselves, who nurtures discipline in silence, and who works steadily on causes rather than effects, will find that the world itself bends to recognize their results. Remember, your attention is your most precious asset, and guarding it is an act of wisdom. Silence is not weakness, it is the reservoir where energy gathers, thought deepens, and clarity emerges. Growth accelerates when explanation decreases, and progress is built on deliberate direction, private commitment, and consistent effort. The applause of others is fleeting, but the quiet satisfaction of disciplined, self-guided action lasts a lifetime. Every keynote we have explored protecting attention, embracing silence, focusing on causes, avoiding distraction, pursuing personal progress, practicing consistency, concentrating energy, working on causes, sharpening focus, and cultivating clarity serves as a guiding principle for intentional living. When applied together, they form a framework for a year that is not merely survived, but truly mastered. And here is the thought to carry with you. Focus on yourself in silence, and life will answer you with results. Let this become your mantra, your daily reminder, and your commitment. Let it guide your choices, filter your distractions, and anchor your energy. Focus on yourself, stay silent, and let your results speak.